Welcome to the Assembly Line podcast, the place where industrial businesses come to tell their story and give you the tools you need to become an authority within your industry. Today, we're excited to be joined by Andrew Wood. Andrew's entrepreneurial journey started from an unlikely beginning, from being homeless at 17 to being inside a jail cell at 19 years of age. Since this point, Andrew has scaled up UPS building and maintenance. This business helps people adapt their homes for disabilities and old age through contracts with local councils. Andrew's grown the business to about 10 million in annual turnover and has acquired other companies such as Adaptation Supplies along the way. Andrew, it's a pleasure to have you here, and we're looking forward to sharing your insights and experiences on the Assembly Line podcast.
Thank you for having me. It's I've been looking forward to it. A little bit nervous, so you have to bear with me, but looking forward to getting started. Thank you.
Well, look, it's great to have you on, Andrew, and I can't wait to kind of hear more about that story today. I think the most apt place to start is if you'd be happy to take us back to the beginning, to where it all started, and then how you as an entrepreneur almost evolved from those somewhat unlikely beginnings.
Yeah, okay. So I suppose it's easier for me if I start right back at the start. I was born in London, and my mum brought me up by herself. I never met my biological father. And my mum worked at Heathrow Airport and met my stepdad, or who I call Dad. He did adopt me over time, so we'll call him my dad for this podcast's sake. And he lived in Scotland, so it was when I was about 4 or 5, we took a sort of big move from London up to Scotland in Aberdeen, so one end of the country to the other. And my dad was a businessman. He was a strict guy, though, very ruled with an iron fist. It was spoken when, sort of spoken to kind of atmosphere. So it was a tough kind of childhood, and I probably didn't help matters because when I was going to schools, I struggled academically, really struggled. I used to struggled with my reading, struggling with my maths. Concentration span very, very small, daydreaming all the time, swinging on my chair, getting sent to the headmaster all the time. So I suppose I didn't help myself in that matter. So I get home, Dad would be away on business, Mum doesn't know what to do with me because I'm in trouble all the time. Dad comes home and, you get a bit of a smack round the ear because you've been messing around. And it was a kind of a vicious cycle through primary school, and we moved a couple of times in primary school time as well, so did 3 different primary schools, and sort of the continuous threat came from my dad, if you don't start behaving, you go into boarding school, and I didn't pass that managing to behave, and ended up going to boarding school for the secondary part of school for 2 years, and I say 2 years because unfortunately, I got kicked out of that school as well for, just not following the curriculum properly. And it's a real shame because I liked that school, and it was a sports school, less academic, and I did okay in that side. But again, through messing around, and I'd get myself in trouble, and that led to a little bit of bullying in that school as well, which was another sort of cycle in my upbringing, which wasn't great. But on the other side of the coin, I wouldn't change any of it. Do you know what I mean? I think it was all part of my learning and growth. And one positive thing, whether I knew it or not, I was around business. I could hear my dad on the phone, the people that were coming round to the house when we were at home, and it also gave me a sort of maybe a bit of an understanding of what I would have liked my life to be like, even though I didn't know, nice holidays and cars and whatever, that kind of thing. It certainly imprinted something into my brain, I think. School and upbringing wasn't the best, especially around the struggle in school with the reading and the maths, and it wasn't till I was about 14 that I got diagnosed with dyslexia, so it was quite further on. Unfortunately, I didn't finish school with any GCSEs. They were all fails. The only one I did okay in was woodwork, which did lead me on to when I finished school, not having a clue what I wanted to do. My dad dropped me off at the Army Careers Office as the day that I finished school, and I failed that exam. So I didn't get into the Army. So it was like, well, what am I going to do? Well, the only thing I did okay on at school was woodwork. So I got an apprenticeship at college to do joinery. But unfortunately, I again, through not towing the line at home or whatever, getting myself in bother with things, so that I found myself homeless at 17. So, that was, again, a difficult period. And I suppose if I'm honest, that's where my entrepreneurial journey started, in difficult circumstances, but I had to find a way to survive. You go from one day being in the comfort of your own home, having 3 meals a day, going to college, learning a trade, not knowing where I wanted to go in life, but at least you were comfortable to, your bag's packed, out you go, you've got to go and fend yourself. So there was some real fast lessons to be learned there on how to survive. Again, I didn't go down the right path with that, unfortunately. And a lot of my friends at that time, we were going out clubbing. I soon realised that there was, and I'm not advising anyone to go down this path, by the way, but I realised there was a supply and demand for drugs, and I realised that I could, that there was a way of making money. And as an apprenticeship going to college, I was only making 50 quid a week in my apprenticeship. It wasn't enough to pay my rent or my bills. And I wrongly went down the path of selling drugs in nightclubs, which ultimately landed me up in a prison cell. So,
wow.
Yeah.
There's a real journey there, isn't there? And I think there's a lot of lessons at a young age that you've kind of had to go through and obviously make your way through really challenging times. I'm interested to hear from you. What would you say was the biggest challenge and lesson that almost came out of that for you? Like, if you take that segment of your life from almost, being kicked out of the house basically, to then thinking, okay, perhaps I need to sort my shit out here in a jail cell. What was it what was the biggest lesson that you took from that?
I think, Joe, the jail was a big eye opener for me. I'm going to be really honest with you. I didn't think I'd go to jail. I didn't think I was doing anything wrong. Reflecting, I know I was, but at the time I thought I was just going out, having a good time, sorting my friends out with some stuff. Unfortunately, one of those people that ended up being an undercover policewoman, and that's how I ended up where I am. But I'll never forget you're in the court, and I firmly, even though my solicitor told me that I could end up going to jail, in my head I thought, no chance. 19-year-old kid, you're not going to jail. And when I did, and the sentence was read out, I'm still expecting to be walking out with my mum, but you get taken downstairs to the cells. I cried, a lot of tears, I'm going to be honest, and that reflection hit me there. I knew right there and right then this was not a place that I wanted to be, and it was. The hardest thing is that everybody told me that's where I'd end up. My mum and dad always told me from a young, even if you can imagine that conversation I meant before, Dad would say, if you don't start behaving, you're going to boarding school. If you fuck boarding school up, you're going to end up in jail. Everything that he predicted happened. And it was a real realization for me that when it did happen, that, like you just said, I got to sort my shit out. And the journey started the day I got took down to those cells. It really did.
Wow. Yeah. In terms of that, so obviously that's where that next phase of your life, obviously, and we'll get into that in a bit more in a minute about what that looked like. But
yeah,
obviously there was a lot of kind of resilience and just almost trying to keep your head above water that must have felt like you were trying to do around those times.
yeah.
So what advice would you give, or what message would you give to people who are perhaps dealing with similar challenges at the moment, and perhaps even just feel like there's almost no way out of them getting around the challenges that they're facing? What messages would you share there?
Yeah, I mean, if I can use jail maybe as, I'm not saying there'll be people watching this that are in that situation, but I think for me, when I actually went to prison, it really was left or right. You know, the left was you're in prison with other criminals that are gonna give you more contacts or more ways to go and do bad things, or you're gonna go right and completely change the way you think about everything. You know, that I literally am scared to speed now. It is that, you know, it is that cutthroat that especially knowing what inside a prison cell's like, and that experience is that you either go left or you go right. And you know, what I would say to anybody that is going down a path that could end up in that way is do whatever you can to break it, you know, because there is, if you put your mind to something, you can achieve anything. And I'd like to think I'm quite a good example of that.
Yeah, that's very interesting. It's just so true that when you sometimes come to those crossroads, you have either one decision or the other, and it's just so important that people know that they almost do have the strength that they can choose the decision that, you know, it might seem harder at the time, but it's the right one, and they do have the strength to push through that.
Yeah, I think if you can do it before hitting rock bottom, it's brilliant. Yeah. You know, I speak to a lot of successful people, and there always seems to be some kind of catalyst that propelled them forward. You know, mine was being in the bottom of the bottom I could possibly be. But, you know, if you can find that drive, that passion, that whatever it is to propel you forward, you know, it's there. And get rid of all those doubts that the mind can play tricks on you, and just put them to one side, and you can achieve anything.
Absolutely, yeah. Looking at it in terms of the kind of business side of things now, what would you say, what kind of lessons did you get from like those initial experiences? What did they teach you in terms of your current business philosophy?
In regards to my experience in jail, or just everything in the younger life?
I think a combination of everything. What would be those kind of key lessons that really help in your business philosophy?
Yeah, well, I think the jail certainly gave me that drive, that passion to be successful, work ethic. You know, there was no way I was going back to a jail cell, so it really gave me that drive. Arguably, you could say for sometimes some of the wrong reasons, because, you know, I spent the first 10 years of my once I got outside jail to prove people wrong that I could, could be successful. The ability to speak to people at all levels. You know, when you've, you know, whether that's from people that I've had to make acquaintances in jail to survive, to now being able to have a conversation with suppliers, you know, customers, CEOs, whatever it might be. There's definitely communication skills would be one, especially when you're dyslexic as well and struggle with the read and writing side. Communication's always been a key point there, I think.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I think there are so many different things that we can take away from these like challenging circumstances that almost like imprint on the way that we do the way that we operate every day. For example, you said earlier about almost the kind of fear of speeding and things like that, and it's almost they just imprint on us as people. So it makes complete sense.
Yeah.
So let's take a step forward now. So obviously you came out of you came out of jail. You did that the time effectively, and to our understanding, you've been on quite a sort of successful and positive journey since. I think a good place to start is just giving a bit of a rundown about what happened after you left.
Yeah.
A bit more about that journey, and then maybe a few strategies and thoughts and ideas that allowed you to take those steps as an individual.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So, I have to tap back into the jail part again because on good behaviour, I got sent to an open jail, and we went on it was called a boot camp, and for the last year of our sentence, we were trained as if we were going into the army. So you're up at 6 a.m. marching, you've got to make your bed, you've got to do your ironing, structure, education, Duke of Edinburgh. And I know you shouldn't love it. I loved it. I've never had structure in my life before, and I loved it. Every second of it, anything opportunity I could grab, I grabbed. And the last 6 weeks of that program, jail got us a work placement. So you'd go on a work placement Monday to Friday on a tag, and you'd go back to the jail at the weekend. They got me a job at a construction company called Jackson Lloyd. And I'll always remember going in my prison uniform, sitting opposite a guy that owned the company called Dennis Cleary. And, you're telling him what you've done. And he gave me that opportunity to work within his business. And, I should have mentioned that before. That's another thing that I've really took into my philosophy, giving people chances. The bond that created between me and him, that he gave me that chance. I would do anything for that guy. And I'd probably still be working at that company now if he hadn't sold it in sort of 2006, which took my next step on. So, yeah, from 2001 when I got out of jail to 2006, I worked for that company. I worked my way up from a labourer when I first started on my day release to a tradesman. They supported me to do my HNC, HND. They were priming me to become a contracts manager, although I never quite made it before the company was sold. I got a lot of, I learned a lot in that company, and I was dedicated to that company because he gave me a chance. Like I say, if he needed something doing at his house, whether that was cleaning the drains, putting the Christmas tree up, fitting, doing, he would ring me, and it meant a lot to me because I know where I came from, and I take that with me now. Giving people chances is very important to me and in my businesses. And so yeah, the only reason I left is because he sold the company in 2006. I didn't like the way it was going, and that took me to 2007, where I set UPS up with a sort of simple philosophy of, well, it's me in a van with an apprentice. If we do a good job, we give the customer a good experience, fingers crossed we'll get some more work. and we did. We did get more work, and it's been a fantastic journey from sort of 2007 to 2024, where we are now. The first sort of 3 or 4 years of that journey was chaos, I should say. And what I mean by that is, when you first set a business up, you're wearing every hat you can possibly think of. You're working on the tools, you're going home invoicing, you're going out at night pricing work. It was a real, almost not 24 hours, but it felt like 24 hours that you were working to try and succeed. And in those early days, we would do anything, Joe. Whatever type of work we could do, we would do, and it was tough. And it was tough because we were busy fools, and we were working for a lot of main contractors with still that same vision of doing a good job, and giving the customer, but we weren't getting any credit for it. We were getting treated badly by the main contractors. You're having to beg for your money. You're making them look good because you're doing the first part right, but then they're making you wait 90 days for your money. And it was tough, but we got through it, and you look at where we've come from being a subcontractor to a main contractor, to having 2 offices now, and got some really good clients that we work for now. Purchased ASL, we've set up an electrical division, to the point now, like we said, we're nearly doing 10 million a year. We've got 80 plus staff. It's a fantastic journey, and it's not just down to me. That is down to the incredible team that we have. It really is. It's a team effort right the way down from our management team to the guys that are on the tools doing the work. It's everyone. So yeah, just following on from the business journey, I think one thing's important to say is that from a family point of view, I'm a proud husband, father of 3. So a lot of my spare time is taking the kids to various different clubs, whatever that might be. But from having my first child is 18 now, and most of the early years of the business when he was young, and not being able to spend not as much time with him as I'd like because I was always on the business. It's something that is really important with my 2 younger ones, that I've really sort of learned that family does come first. And I'd say that to anybody else, is that you've got to find that balance between work and family. I'm massively passionate about my kids and my wife, and ensuring that even though that entrepreneurial brain never switches off, that you've got to find time for the family. So yeah, a shout out to the family.
Well, I mean, it is one hell of a journey, and I think it shows that there's a saying, isn't there? People overestimate what they can do in a day or a few days, but they drastically underestimate what they can do in the period of a few years. And I think that's a perfect reflection of that story that you've experienced, I suppose, there, isn't it?
Yeah. That's it almost gets you a little bit emotional when you do something like this, because it gives you that little bit of time to reflect. When you're really busy in your day, you forget sometimes the journey that you've been on, and it can be it's good though.
It's so impressive. I've got one more. Andreas is going to come on to the sort of adaptation supplies in a minute, and those those additional businesses that you're operating in, and kind of the other pies that you kind of dipping your finger into. But one of the questions that I have for you is around this like dyslexia component. So people kind of limit themselves a lot, and they put limitations on themselves. They have these beliefs that they believe, okay, if you want to work for local councils, for example, you're going to have to write tenders, and to write tenders, you need to be able to kind of deliver that information in a certain way. And obviously, you kind of smashed through those barriers. What would you say to people out there that perhaps have that sort of feeling that they can't move past these barriers, or they put these labels on themselves that they perhaps have attached to themselves so closely that they just can't break from them?
Yeah, I mean, I think it goes back to again, it's difficult when you very first start your business, because you have to wear all those hats because you don't have that capital to be able to outsource things. But what I would say is that even when you're doing them yourself, with technology, with AI, with Grammarly, I use Grammarly for everything. It's in my phone, it's in my Microsoft documents. There is lots of stuff out there with technology that can help with that. And I go back to that point of being able to employ people that are, or whether that's employ or whether that's through subcontracting parts out that you're not good at. There is loads of bid writers out there. I struggled with bid writing, and go back when I first tried to do my first tender, there's no wonder we didn't win the work, because I didn't have Grammarly back then. And, look at all the spellings and the grammar. And although I put my heart and soul into it because I was passionate about it, it just wasn't good enough. And you can't go explaining to the local council, or you might not understand my tender because I'm dyslexic. But what I would say what I would say to everyone is that, you can overcome these things. If you're passionate about something, there is so much information, technology, people that want to help you as well. There is so many people out there that will help you, that want you to succeed. You've just got to have that mindset to go and find it and work a way out to achieve it.
Yeah, mindset's just so important. I remember the first proposal that we ever wrote, Joe. It was absolutely horrible. We've certainly come a long way since that. It's funny to think back. Yeah, Andrew, we talked about previously, we quickly touched upon AS. Obviously, you acquired that business. So it would be great to hear a little bit about that kind of story behind that, and almost like what challenges did you face? How did you overcome them?
Yeah, no worries. Yeah. I'd love to say that I have an amazing story that we decided we were going to acquire a business and we went looking for it but ours was quite simple. We purchased ASL in 2019. And 4 years prior to that, we really started getting into adaptations. I think I mentioned that we started specializing in one particular field, which really propelled our business. And they became our supplier of choice for getting all the materials. And they weren't a big company. They were a small independent company, but they just worked. We were quite small. They were quite small. We built a good relationship up, and the service was really good for us because we became their main customer. And we had lots of, within my management team, we were always very clear on what our 5-year goals were. We would have regular meetings, and I remember one of the managers said, when we were doing sort of our, little charts on the boards of the things that we were going to do and achieve, and said, why don't we purchase ASL? And then we, discuss, no, that, we're the main customer. It's too big a risk. It's not a good idea. And my wheels started, well, let's buy it and let's make us not the main customer. Let's, grow it. So it stemmed from that. It stemmed from having a management meeting with the team. And then we went and spoke to the owner. And to my surprise, he said, yep, no problem. We're looking to retire. It's a pain in my ass. Love to get rid of it. So that's the process of the due diligence, which was interesting. There's a lot goes into due diligence. I didn't realize how much there was. It took about 6 months to go through all the due diligence. Yeah. Interesting process, though. I did enjoy it. And then, 2019, we got it. And then 4 months later, COVID hit. And that was a real... we put a lot of time and effort to get that business. Then COVID came. It was like, oh no, what have we done? But then again, listen, I think if you can get through something like that, whether it be a recession or COVID or whatever it might be, that really bonded us as a team really early doors. We were very lucky as well that because we were doing adaptations, that we weren't actually in lockdown for that long. We became a necessity to help to get people out of hospitals. So we were only actually locked down for a couple of weeks. So we actually picked up quite a lot of new customers as well through that time, because we were open quite quickly, which was good. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, it was. I just really enjoyed the process, and from when we finally owned it, to be able to go in and make the changes that we did, from probably simple things, but something the other owner never did. So the CRM system straight in there, so we could control stock. We completely redid the warehouse, put a mezzanine floor in, changed all the racking so that we could get more stuff in. We've empowered the management team. So instead of it just, being do as I say, maybe we've empowered the management team to be able to have that ability for growth instead of just serving him as the owner and us as UPS. They didn't really have any other many customers. And, 4 years on, it's gone from sort of £1 million, well, about £750,000 a year business to a £4 million business. We've gone from 3 staff to 8 staff. We've now got online sales, which ASL never had before. We're doing about £40,000 a month on Shopify, which is amazing. And like I say, it's just been a great process, and I really believe ASL's got massive potential. I think we could be the Amazon of the healthcare world. That's my goal.
When you think about medium to long term, like UK, massively aging population, people that are going to be in more of these types of situations, I think that almost like the business environment, I suppose, is setting up quite nicely for growth, just in the same way that you're internally managing all of your all of the areas there to do exactly the same. I think perhaps it might feed into what we've already spoken about so far, but tell us about some of the situations in which you sat down and you thought, okay, I'm taking a big risk here, or this has got to work. Like, what are some of those big risks that you took along the way that you would say really firstly paid off, or maybe even didn't pay off?
Yeah, got a few stories. I mean, a lot of them, especially in the early stages, as I'm sure they for most are probably financial ones. First one being as I sold my house to set the business up. Go back to the jail thing again. My mum made me purchase a house before I went to jail because she was adamant that there is no way that I'd ever be able to get a mortgage with a criminal record. For anyone out there, I don't think that's the case, but I'm really glad that she did, because we managed to pick a little council house up for 19 grand, and then in 2007, when I set the business up, I was able to sell that to be able to start the business up. And I think in construction especially, I don't think all businesses you have to have a big cash flow, but in construction it's very difficult because your payment terms are always long with the big contractors. You've always generally got to finish your work before you're going to get paid. So without that cash flow, I would have never been able to start. And if it hadn't have worked, I'd have been homeless again because I wouldn't have been able to buy another house. But luckily it did work. Another one around financial again, I suppose in 2010, we'd only been going for 3 or 4 years. We were working for a large company called Connaughts, and they went into administration. Again, they took us for quite a large amount of money. And it was the closest that we've ever been in sort of the 16-year journey of sort of, we're going to have to pack up here. I took it on my own shoulders as well. I didn't share it with the team. Key management figures knew, but I didn't want to spread that fear around the company. But yeah, luckily, a little bit of help from the bank and a little bit of help from family, we managed to get through it. But a very touch and go time of whether you can get through that or not. ASL, I know we spoke about ASL, but that was another big one for us. I remember people saying to me, "What the hell are you doing buying a merchant? You're in construction. Why would you buy a plumber's merchant? You know nothing about selling." And I don't. But again, we talked about it before about empowering people. It's still a business. It's still just processes, sales, giving the customer a good experience. There's still a lot of the principles are still the same. Why can't it be successful? And it has. And I'm not involved in that business on a day-to-day basis at all, apart from having a monthly meeting with maybe a weekly meeting with the management team, because they've been empowered, they've been given the freedom to go and grow that business. And another risk, but a risk that I think that's paid off well.
Yeah, I really think it really comes down to mindset. And I think opportunities that get given to you, especially with you, Andrew, like having some opportunities early on, let's say, you've kind of seen where you take one opportunity where it can almost take you in the end. So I guess that's what helps you a lot with kind of seeing these opportunities and almost not being scared of them, not being scared to go in the unknown, because to the majority of people, that they might see it and they'll be absolutely terrified and wouldn't even touch it. So it really does come down to that mindset. And there is many people out there that feel that they're unable to, to get that success. There's some people that really want it and they're just scared or don't have that mindset. How would you respond to that? What would you say?
I think for the people that don't have that mindset, you've got to work on it. You've got to work on your own mindset. There is, especially with the internet, there's so many people influence out there, so much self-development that you can put yourself through. I wish I knew all about that side of stuff when I first started. Mine was just pure drive and passion to be successful, to prove people wrong. And your mindset evolves over time. If again, I use my own experience, the first 10 years of me being in business was about, proving people wrong, getting to a certain sale figure, what car am I driving, what material thing, and all those things are rubbish. They really are. But once you start going on that personal development process of adapting your mindset, I think it's a game changer. I really do. And I think for anybody out there that's got those self-doubts, we all have self-doubt. Everyone goes through I think our brains are wired that way. Yeah. But if we can, I would hate to get to my point in life and look back and think, what if I'd have done that? Yeah. What if I hadn't have made that decision to set my own business up, or what if I hadn't have invested in that company or done that thing? I think that would be worse to be sitting on your bed when you're going through your last moments, to be sitting through all those what ifs, than sitting in your bed and looking back and going, I'm glad I took that risk, or I'm glad that I changed my mindset. And I think health, mindset, they do come hand in hand as well. I think, you've got to get everything right to be that forward thinking. I think if you don't, you've got to do whatever it takes to set that, whether you're not surrounded by the right people, your family situation's not right, whatever it might be. If you really want to have a go, you've got to work on those elements, and they're all workable yourself. You don't need to wait for someone to do it for you or to hold your hand through it. You can do it yourself.
You touched on something really important there that I think about a lot, at least every hour of every day, probably more, which is this word of like potential. And I think you touched on it there in terms of, if you don't take these risks, if you don't push to maintain that mindset, push in terms of health and making the most of the people in your business, it all comes down to the idea of potential. Am I maximizing my potential, what I can achieve? Is this something that crosses your mind too, in terms of that context?
I think so. Yeah, I think it's something that, for me personally, Joe, I had to rediscover. My original goals were to get to £1 million in sales, and I struggled in sort of that period of when I reached those goals. How do you reset them? Yeah, and I had to do a bit of coach or be coached and mentored to sort of drag that out of me. And I'm glad I did that, because it really refocuses to, I'll be honest, the sales targets to me don't really matter anymore. I know they should, but what's more important to me is realizing that potential of my team members, watching them grow, watching them succeed. I get a real buzz from it. I get a real buzz from empowering. I get a real buzz from an apprentice coming on board in the company, seeing them get their qualification, going into management and doing the best that they possibly can do. And even if they leave, I get a buzz that I've helped them get to where they've got to and move on. You know, you asked me that question 10 years ago, Joe, if someone left that I'd invested my time and energy into, you know, I'd be having a a breakdown. But
we spoke about this before, I think, offline, which was around that idea that you are a massive believer in, which is if you want to bring people into your company and if you want to almost bring successful people into those maybe middle management and leadership team roles, then where you've had your best success is bringing people in at a relatively low level, the likes of those, and then almost bringing them up through the business.
Yeah, Joe, I think out of our sort of 10 higher management team that we have, I'd say 7 of those are from people that have been at the company right at the start.
Wow.
And been on the tools and worked their way up. The sort of, for me, it was almost the same as what I'd done in that company that gave me that chance, if you know what I mean, to be a labourer, to be a joiner, to send me to college. And I like I say, I get a real buzz from seeing that. And, you know, a more commercially minded person would probably come into my business and go, he doesn't fit. But for me, they do, and you know, and I think that's what makes UPS. I know some people don't like the word of this, but I generally believe it's a family. You know, I put my team first. You know, and I care about them, and I love watching their journey and watching them grow. And you know, I hope that a lot of entrepreneurs, business owners have these exit plans that they're going to exit in X amount of years. I don't. I want to pass the baton over as a CEO in the next 5 years. I want to be a board member, and I want to be able to still be involved in the business at board level and watch it carry on and grow. That might change, but that generally is how I feel at the minute.
Really interesting. I mean, that was going to be my final question for you, and I think you might have a couple of things to add around what does your life look like over the next 5 to 10 years? I feel like you've provided loads of value and loads of thoughts during this conversation, but give us an insight as to what you're looking to achieve over those next sort of 5 to 10 years to keep you pushing forward on that.
Yeah. Cause I suppose then. So I'll start with sort of UPS and UPS Electrical. Like I said, my management team are regularly involved with what the 5-year plan is and what the 10-year plan is, and my team are well aware that in the next 5 years that I'd like to take a step back, and we're gearing that company up just to carry on in the natural growth that it's been going on, still with that same core value, doing a good job, giving the customer a good experience, and everything else seems to take care of itself as long as we've got our processes and everything in place and the right team. And I think we do. ASL, I think I mentioned it before. I really do think that can become the Amazon of the healthcare world. We're really going to focus on our online sales over the next 5 years, and we've got some really ambitious growth targets for that company. If there was out of any of the companies that there could be an exit plan on, it could be that one, because I think it's got real potential to grow over the next 5 years. And as an entrepreneur, what keeps me busy is I have my mind never stops, so I'm always interested in other things. So I've just started. I've got always wanted to do a development. So we've got with my friend Stuart. We've just bought our first piece of land that we're building 5 houses on. To as much as anything, to learn the process. I met Stuart on again, this is something that I advise to anyone. We talked about it before, about bettering yourself mindset. You know, my wife says, why do you need to go and learn about doing development? Well, because I want to stimulate my brain. So I went on a property course, the Andy Hubbard, down in Essex, and we've learned the process for how to do it. We've bought our first piece of land. We're going to build 5 houses. With the end dream of that, though, Joe, is that I want to tie it back into my other companies. I don't know if we spoke much about why. I think I missed a few things before, but you know, our why is changing lives for the better. We're adapting people's houses. We've adapted over 7,500 houses since we started, and that's probably kept up to 5,000 people out of hospitals and given their independence. I really want to build adaptive bungalows with assisted technology. The technology that is out there that can help people that are elderly and struggling is unbelievable, but yet it's not yet quite in the grant system because it's too expensive. But, you know, you can automate everything in the house, to being able to close your blinds, to be able to put the kettle on, to be able to remind you to take your medication, to be able to have a light in the ceiling that detects if you fall and creates a FaceTime with your care provider to assess you whether you actually need an ambulance or you just need the carer to come round to come and visit you. I got a real passion about that, and once I've built these 5 houses, aren't adaptive houses. This is just, I bought a plot so that we can learn how to do the development process. If that all goes well, over the next 5 years, like I say, I really want to get involved in building these bungalows. And then I suppose the other thing is investments in general. I think one of your guests, David Lynch, I can't say too much because we're in early stages, but I'm working with David on a couple of interesting projects. I've invested in a company called Tax Torch, which is going to be an interactive AI app to help businessmen, entrepreneurs to be able to do their taxes in real time so that we can plan better, so that we, instead of getting to the end of the year and going, oh shit, we've got this bill to pay, that we're more in line. And I can see you guys smiling, so we've probably all been in that situation.
Yeah, let us know a bit more about that one.
So I think this will be a really good as well. So yeah, you know, as you can probably see, I'm probably buzzing at this part and that's not taking anything away from my existing companies, because I'm still absolutely buzzing with them, but my mind doesn't stop. You know, that's when you dislike. I'm not saying when you dislike. I'm not saying that's the only, but I might not be able to write you a nice email but you know, the mind never stops. It's always. My wife's like, why would you get into development? Why do you want to go and have meetings with David? Why? But I just can't help it. My mind is always going.
Always going. Well, Andrew, it's honestly been really insightful to sit down and talk with you through these different kind of experiences and ideas. I know for sure that not only Andreas and I relate to a lot of the things that you said, but also I think we can both say that we've taken a lot away, and I think many of the listeners will. Finally, just let people know where they can find you, anything that you want to point people in the direction of, websites, LinkedIn, etc.
Yeah, you can find me LinkedIn, Andrew Wood, and then I've got the 3 websites for the company: UPS Building, upselectrical.com, and adaptations.com. I'm sure we can copy them and put them in the comments when it's released. Yeah,
absolutely, most certainly. Okay, well, look, Andrew, been fantastic having you on. Appreciate your time as always. I hope everyone goes to check out your LinkedIn and a bit more about what you're doing, and look forward to speaking again soon.
Okay, thanks very much, guys. Appreciate it. Thank you.